We have a couple more folks. Ava's joining us. Okay, Mike, we're good to go.
Okay, good morning. Welcome. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 9:01. Amber, would you please take attendance?
Sure. Thank you, Mike. Ava Bermuda Zimmerman.
Present.
Good morning, Ava.
Good morning, present.
David Salazar Austin. I don't think David's joined us yet. Holly Williams.
Present.
Ellen McKitterick.
Present.
Good morning. And Mike Soltis.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Amber. I would like to welcome and thank the members of the public for joining us today. Our first agenda item is to ask the committee for a review of the November 5th, 2024 minutes and a motion to approve.
So
So
moved.
moved. Oh,
Second.
go ahead, Ava.
Oh,
Okay,
so moved.
I've got
Ava
Holly
moved,
and
I'll
Ava.
second.
Okay.
Yep.
all right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Michael, would you please lead the discussion regarding the proposed changes to the authority's employee handbook?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike, and good morning, everybody. I'm going to share my screen real quick.
You've
Hopefully,
seen your screen, Mike.
perfect. So as the authority continues our process of reviewing our internal policies and just making sure that they are sort of up to date, the next item on the docket was the employee handbook. Hopefully folks received the sort of redline version of those changes, so the exact changes. I'm not going to go through each one today, but I did want to talk about sort of the themes of the changes and what led to them. And then we can sort of dive into any specifics if we want to. So much like the other policies we've recently revised, we're proposing revisions in order to comply with Public Act 24-5. In this case, it's really about expanding safe leave, so that includes sexual assault as well as domestic violence. In addition, we added language regarding reporting any ethical or legal concerns to the CEO or chairperson of the board. We already have an ethics policy for the authority as well as a statewide ethics policy for state employees. This language is more specific to whistleblower type situations, and should people feel concerned about they witness anything inappropriate, they should feel totally open to reporting that to either the CEO or chairperson without fear of retaliation. A lot of the other ethics policies are much more about your own personal behavior and what's ethical for you to do. This is specific to whistleblowing, so we added that language because we thought it'd be helpful for the handbook. Next item was definitions of work schedules and attendance policies. This might be the most significant change as far as like word count, but really it's about defining what was undefined in the past. So adding more specificity about what a work schedule is and what sort of an absence is, as well as what sort of the consequences of unscheduled absences are. Really, this is about just making sure we're consistent across the board, because we think it's good for both employees and supervisors to sort of be all on the same page about how this works. The fourth item is adding clarity to how vacation time, sick time, personal time is accrued. I don't think there's any change in intent here. It's really just about defining what was undefined previously about how those are accrued. The fifth item is similarly no change in intent, just sort of adding language regarding the equal employment opportunity and affirmative action policies by referencing the somewhat recent Crown Act, making a change from veteran status to status as a veteran, as well as adding a reference to domestic violence in those policies. Second last item, updating some outdated references. The former policy, or the current policy actually, has some references to what happens prior to 2022. Sort of not important to have that in the policy any longer since we're well beyond that. It also had legal citations to the Public Act rather than to the Connecticut statute, so it's always better to actually reference the statutes. And then adding Juneteenth as a holiday, since that is recognized as one of the state of Connecticut holidays. And then the last item, really just about consistency in voice and terms. If you saw the original policy, it with sometimes refer to the person as you, and the second person, you or your. Other times we would refer to them as employees or their in the third person. So we just wanted to consistently use the same terms throughout the policy whenever we were talking about the employees. So that's basically it. The goal would be to share these changes with the board, post them for notice and comment, and eventually adopt them in a couple of months after the notice and comment period. But for that, happy to take any questions that the committee might have about any of these changes.
Okay, any questions? I can't really see everybody because of the presentation on the screen, so just speak up. Are there any questions for Michael? Okay, seeing none, I have a few.
Right.
Michael, when was the last time we reviewed the handbook?
It looks like it was revised last December of 2021. So I think it was adopted in one of the first things that happened was I think April of 2020, and then it was revised a year later. So it would have been fall, winter of 2021.
Okay. And really just two questions. One, under our FMLA policy,
Mhm.
the language really just refers to a state letter. Right? We don't include the actual policy in the handbook.
Mhm.
And I wondered, because of the nature of our authority, of our what we do, whether we should include that either in the handbook or as an appendix.
Good
So,
question. Go ahead, Aaron.
sorry, I'll jump in because I helped write the general letter back in my old world. It's really long. It's the state of Connecticut has not just Connecticut FMLA, federal FMLA, but there's also leave entitlements that were predated the changes to Connecticut FMLA and were kind of enshrined in the 2017 CBAC agreement. There's also leave rights specific to state employees relating to organ and bone marrow donation as a result of legislation that happened around the same time. So it's just a very, very long policy. And so I think your idea of perhaps referencing it as an appendix, or at least sharing the link to it, is a good idea so people can more easily find it. But it would be disproportionate
Yeah.
in length if we included it as our own. And we don't have the authority to change it, so we really putting it out to public comment really would be a little bit disingenuous, because as state employees, and particularly with our classified staff, they are subject to that policy without regard to whatever we think of it. But it's a good policy, I will say that.
Okay. No, it's good thought. The only other reason I thought about it is sometimes employers in the private sector might look at our handbook to see what the best FMLA policy is, right? I mean, if our authorities adopted it, maybe they want to model theirs on ours. So having it readily available, I thought might be an advantage for that reason also.
Absolutely.
That's
I
good.
think linking it is a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, and the other question, and I probably address this, is there conflict? How do we resolve conflicts between the benefits that are applicable to those covered by collective bargaining agreements in our handbook?
So technically, we address it by acknowledging that collective bargaining provisions may vary, and for our staff covered by those collective bargaining units, the collective bargaining agreement controls. So we reference that in a few different places in the handbook. In practice, we have attempted to make sure that our rules are fairly consistent with state rules, because that's easier, honestly, for everyone to administer. One of the areas where we have been different related to when you get to utilize your accrued time. So for State of Connecticut employees, at least in the executive branch, you start accruing after your first full month of employment, and you can use your sick time sort of immediately, but up until this time, if you are a classified state employee, you cannot use your vacation time or PL until you've completed your initial working test period or 6 months, depending on your status. And when we set up, we did not adopt that rule. We said people could use their time when it was accrued. So that's been a significant difference. However, in last year's legislative session, DAS supported legislation that would make it possible for executive branch employees to start using their accruals as soon, their time off as soon as it's accrued, instead of having to wait. So this is I think a relatively rare instance where the state is going to move closer to us. So starting in January, where we were an outlier, we will no longer be different, because they're going to start letting people use their accruals immediately instead of waiting. That's, I think, our biggest area. There may be others. It's a little tricky sometimes because we've got 3 different unions represented on our staff. And although the bargaining agreements are posted online, side agreements aren't always. But that's why we rely on the assistance of DAS to do our HR, and they let us know in the specific instances if there's anything that we need to be particularly aware of.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments from Michael? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Is there any old business anyone wants to
Oh,
raise?
okay.
Any new business anyone would like to raise? Okay, then we will entertain a motion to adjourn. I need
So
a
moved.
motion to adjourn.
Oh, so moved, Holly.
Second? Anyone?
Second, Ellen.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. It is 9:13 a.m. Thank you for your time this morning. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you
Thank
much.
you, everyone.
Thank you.